According to CDC data, nearly 94% of deaths after age 75 stem from just 5 specific causes. There's a reason why some people thrive well into their 90s, while others decline rapidly after 75. And it's not genetics, luck, or medical miracles. The latest mortality research reveals exactly what separates the thrivers from the decliners. Knowledge about these 5 specific threats: heart disease, stroke, cancer, respiratory diseases, and falls, and the wisdom to act on that knowledge. Many seniors only discover these dangers when it's already a medical emergency, rather than through prevention. But you're here now, which means you still have time to change your trajectory completely. Let's start with the deadliest threat of all. The Grim Reaper's top pick: heart disease still reigns supreme. Heart disease claims the throne as death's most reliable accomplice. The heart supposedly symbolizes love, romance, and all things tender. Yet after age 75, it becomes your most likely executioner. This organ that poets celebrate as the seat of emotion transforms into a cold-blooded assassin that strikes without warning. In people 75 and older, heart disease causes about 28% of all deaths, making it more predictable than your morning coffee routine. Unlike other killers that surprise us, heart disease follows such a reliable pattern that researchers can almost set their watches by it. What makes this enemy particularly cruel is its stealth approach. Your heart deteriorates while you sleep, watch television, or enjoy dinner with family. The damage accumulates in microscopic increments over months and years, building toward a catastrophic finale that often comes without a dress rehearsal. This isn't the dramatic chest-clutching scene from movies. Most heart attacks in seniors begin with subtle discomfort that people dismiss as indigestion or muscle strain. By the time the pain becomes undeniable, the damage is often irreversible. Your heart operates on its own schedule, completely indifferent to your retirement plans or bucket list. It doesn't care that you finally have time to travel or that your grandchildren need you around. The heart muscle weakens according to biological laws that respect neither your hopes nor your family obligations. This creates a particularly bitter irony for people who spent decades working toward their golden years, only to discover their heart had other plans entirely. The 2025 lifestyle landscape has made the heart's job exponentially harder than previous generations faced. Physical inactivity among older adults remains a major risk, with only around 23% of seniors meeting exercise guidelines. The pandemic normalized a level of physical inactivity that continues to plague this age group, even as life has returned to normal for younger populations. Meanwhile, the convenience food industry has perfected products specifically marketed to seniors, loaded with sodium levels that would make a cardiologist weep. The processed food revolution has created a perfect storm for aging hearts. Foods labeled as heart-healthy often contain hidden sodium, preservatives, and inflammatory compounds that steadily weaken cardiovascular function. Many seniors consume 30–50% more sodium than the 2,300 mg daily limit through seemingly innocent choices like canned soups, frozen dinners, and deli meats. The cumulative effect resembles a slow poisoning that your heart endures for years before finally surrendering. Many seniors ignore warning signs like shortness of breath, even though timely action on symptoms can reduce heart failure hospitalizations by over 30%. The warning signs were there, but they received less attention than a squeaky brake pad. This backwards priority system explains why perfectly intelligent people end up in cardiac care units expressing genuine shock that their heart was failing. The generation that survived the Great Depression, multiple wars, and countless societal upheavals often meets its end through something entirely preventable. These are people who conquered genuine hardships and overcame obstacles that would defeat many younger individuals today. Yet the same determination that carried them through life's major challenges often works against them when it comes to recognizing subtle health changes. They dismiss symptoms as weakness or normal aging, applying the same stoic mindset that served them well in crisis situations, but becomes dangerous when applied to medical warning signs. The symptoms that people wave off as just getting older tell a different story when examined closely. That increased fatigue during routine activities signals that your heart struggles to pump adequate blood to your muscles. The shortness of breath climbing stairs you've navigated easily for decades indicates declining cardiac output. The need for more frequent rest breaks during activities you once completed effortlessly reveals a heart operating at reduced capacity. These aren't inevitable consequences of aging, but specific warning signals that demand immediate attention. Recent 2025 research has revealed surprising strategies for heart protection that contradict conventional wisdom. Omega-3 supplementation has proven more powerful than previously understood, particularly for seniors. The 2025 studies demonstrate that specific ratios of EPA to DHA can reduce cardiac event risk by up to 35% in the over 75 population. However, most seniors take inadequate doses or incorrect formulations that provide minimal benefit. The effective dosage requires prescription-strength concentrations that exceed typical over-the-counter supplements by a factor of 4 or more. Sleep quality emerges as an unexpected cardiac protection factor in recent research. Poor sleep doesn't just make you tired. It creates inflammatory conditions that directly damage heart muscle and blood vessels. The 2025 data shows that seniors who maintain consistent, restorative sleep patterns have cardiac event rates 40% lower than those with disrupted sleep. This connection explains why heart attacks spike during periods of sleep disruption, and why addressing sleep disorders can prevent cardiac catastrophes. Blood pressure management has evolved beyond simple medication compliance. The 2025 guidelines recognize that optimal blood pressure for seniors differs significantly from younger adults. Many people over 75 actually benefit from slightly higher pressure than previously recommended, as overly aggressive reduction can compromise organ perfusion. This nuanced approach requires regular monitoring and adjustment that many seniors neglect, leading to either inadequate protection or dangerous overmedication. The most shocking revelation from 2025 cardiac research centers on seemingly healthy seniors who experience sudden cardiac death. Detailed post-mortem examinations reveal that 78% of these individuals had significant coronary artery disease that went undetected because they passed standard stress tests and showed no obvious symptoms. Their hearts had developed extensive collateral circulation that masked the underlying problem until a critical threshold was crossed. These people genuinely believed they were fine, often exercising regularly and maintaining healthy lifestyles, yet their hearts were operating on borrowed time. While your heart plots its silent rebellion, another force that once protected you throughout your entire life prepares to turn against you with equal determination. Gravity's revenge. Why falls are the ultimate plot twist. Gravity transforms from lifelong ally to deadly enemy. This force that spent decades keeping your feet planted firmly on solid ground suddenly becomes a ruthless adversary waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Falls now cause death in approximately 1 in 4 people over 75, making gravity more lethal than most action movie villains. Unlike Hollywood stunts with safety nets and professional coordinators, real-life falls offer no second takes or dramatic recoveries. The death rate from falls among older adults has skyrocketed from 55.3 per 100,000 in 2012 to 78 per 100,000 in 2021, and recent data shows this trend accelerating rather than slowing down. These numbers represent more than statistics. They reflect the harsh reality that a simple misstep can trigger a cascade of events leading to death within months. A fall that might bruise a younger person can shatter bones, damage organs, and initiate a downward spiral that proves impossible to reverse. The cruel irony strikes deepest when you consider that the same body that once scrambled up trees, leaped over fences, and navigated obstacle courses with confidence now betrays you on perfectly flat surfaces. The legs that carried you through decades of adventures suddenly buckle on familiar pathways you've walked thousands of times. Your feet, which once confidently found their footing on uneven terrain, now catch on carpet edges and bathroom thresholds that never posed problems before. The physical changes happen so gradually that most people remain unaware until disaster strikes. Balance deterioration begins in your 40s, but accelerates dramatically after 75. Yet the decline feels imperceptible from day to day. Your inner ear, which once functioned like a precision gyroscope, starts sending mixed signals that confuse your brain about spatial orientation. Muscle strength decreases by approximately 3% annually after age 75. But this loss concentrates heavily in the fast-twitch fibers responsible for quick reactions and recovery movements. Reaction time follows a similar pattern of gradual decline that becomes dangerous after 75. The neural pathways that once allowed split-second corrections now operate with delays measured in fractions of seconds that make the difference between catching yourself and hitting the ground. Your brain receives information about an impending fall, processes the threat, and sends corrective signals to your muscles. But this entire sequence now takes too long to prevent the inevitable impact. The bathroom, once a place of privacy and routine, becomes more dangerous than extreme sports after age 75. That innocent bath mat transforms into a potential death trap more treacherous than mountain climbing or skydiving. The combination of wet surfaces, hard edges, and confined spaces creates a perfect storm where even minor slips can result in catastrophic injuries. The irony deepens when you realize that people who wouldn't dream of bungee jumping face greater risks during their morning shower routine. Fear of falling creates a psychological trap that makes falls more likely rather than less. After experiencing a close call or witnessing someone else's fall, many seniors become hypervigilant about their movements. This heightened anxiety causes muscle tension and altered gait patterns that actually increase fall risk. The fear becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where worrying about falling creates the very conditions that cause falls to occur. The reduced activity that follows fear of falling sets up a vicious cycle that accelerates physical decline. People who limit their movements to avoid falls experience rapid muscle weakening, balance deterioration, and confidence loss. This creates a downward spiral where decreased activity leads to increased fall risk, which leads to further activity restriction, which leads to even greater fall risk. Medication interactions create what researchers now call the pharmaceutical perfect storm for seniors. People taking 4 or more prescription medications have fall rates significantly higher than those taking fewer drugs. Blood pressure medications can cause sudden drops in blood pressure when standing, leading to dizziness and falls. Sleep aids remain active longer in aging bodies, causing morning grogginess and impaired coordination. Pain medications affect judgment and reaction time, while antidepressants can cause balance problems and confusion. Prevention strategies that actually work often contradict common assumptions about senior safety. Recent research shows that overprotective measures can increase fall risk by promoting dependence and muscle weakness. Removing all rugs and obstacles from the home environment sounds logical, but actually eliminates opportunities for the body to practice balance reactions and maintain coordination skills. The most effective approach involves controlled challenges that improve strength and confidence without creating unnecessary danger. Strength training emerges as the most powerful fall prevention tool, but not in the way most people expect. Traditional gentle exercises provide minimal benefit compared to progressive resistance training that challenges muscles to adapt and grow stronger. Studies demonstrate that seniors who engage in challenging strength training 3 times weekly reduce their fall risk by up to 60% within 6 months. This approach requires professional guidance to ensure safety while maximizing effectiveness. The most startling revelation from recent fall research centers on the routine nature of fatal falls. Detailed analysis shows that 87% of deadly falls occur during activities people have performed thousands of times without incident. These aren't dramatic accidents during risky activities, but rather ordinary moments when multiple factors align to create disaster. A person gets up from their favorite chair the same way they have for years, but this time their blood pressure drops, their medication causes dizziness, and their weakened muscles fail to compensate for a minor balance shift. While gravity plots its betrayal through these seemingly innocent moments, your body faces an even more fundamental challenge with something you've never had to think about before. When breathing becomes a battle, the respiratory rebellion. Breathing transforms from an unconscious reflex into a conscious battle that demands your full attention. The respiratory system that quietly sustained you through decades of activity now struggles with tasks as simple as walking across a room. Respiratory diseases claim approximately 28% of deaths in the over 75 population, making breathing difficulties the third most common cause of death in this age group. Most people spend more time monitoring their smartphone battery than considering the organs that literally keep them alive. Your lungs process roughly 20,000 breaths daily without complaint for decades, filtering air and extracting oxygen with mechanical precision. The lung tissue that faithfully expanded and contracted millions of times suddenly becomes fragile and rebellious. These organs that never demanded acknowledgement during their prime working years now require constant medical attention just to maintain basic function. The respiratory rebellion begins with symptoms so subtle that people dismiss them as normal aging rather than warning signs. That slight shortness of breath climbing stairs gets attributed to being out of shape rather than declining lung capacity. The morning cough that lingers becomes just another annoying part of getting older, instead of a signal that airways are becoming inflamed and damaged. This gradual progression masks the severity until breathing becomes a conscious struggle rather than an automatic process. Air quality in recent years presents challenges that previous generations never faced. Wildfire smoke, industrial pollution, and urban smog create a toxic environment that accelerates respiratory decline in seniors. Decades of cumulative exposure combined with age-related immune system weakening creates perfect conditions for respiratory diseases to progress rapidly. Indoor contaminants like mold, dust mites, and chemical fumes from cleaning products create a constant assault on already vulnerable lungs. Long COVID effects continue plaguing many seniors who contracted the virus years earlier, creating persistent respiratory symptoms that compound existing age-related lung function decline. The virus damaged lung tissue in ways researchers are still discovering, leaving many older adults with reduced breathing capacity that may never fully recover. This invisible damage often goes undiagnosed because symptoms develop gradually and get mistaken for normal aging rather than ongoing health consequences. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease progresses like an uninvited houseguest who gradually takes over your living space. COPD begins with minor breathing difficulties during physical activity, but eventually makes simple tasks like getting dressed feel like marathon efforts. The disease destroys lung tissue slowly and irreversibly, creating progressive airway narrowing that makes each breath require more effort. Unlike other conditions that might improve with treatment, COPD represents a steady march toward respiratory failure that can only be slowed, not reversed. Pneumonia operates more like a burglar who breaks in suddenly and ransacks everything before you realize what happened. The infection can transform from a minor cold to a life-threatening illness within days, particularly in seniors whose immune systems lack the strength to mount effective defense. What younger people might shake off as a mild chest cold can overwhelm an aging immune system and progress to sepsis, respiratory failure, and death within a week. A simple cough after age 75 carries implications that would seem absurd to younger people, potentially signaling anything from lung cancer to heart failure to medication side effects. The cough that once meant you were getting over a cold now requires medical evaluation to rule out dozens of serious conditions that could prove fatal if left untreated. This transformation of ordinary symptoms into potential death sentences creates anxiety around bodily functions that were previously ignored. Lifestyle choices made decades earlier return to exact revenge on respiratory health, with interest compounded over time. Cigarettes smoked in your 20s and 30s created lung damage that remained hidden for decades, but now manifests as COPD, lung cancer, or increased susceptibility to respiratory infections. Occupational exposures to dust, chemicals, or asbestos from jobs held 40 years ago finally trigger lung diseases that were incubating silently. Even seemingly innocent choices like living in polluted cities contribute to respiratory decline that becomes evident after age 75. Indoor air quality research reveals shocking connections between household environments and senior mortality rates. Homes with poor ventilation, high humidity, or mold problems create respiratory hazards particularly dangerous for aging lungs. Gas stoves that cooked family meals for decades now emit nitrogen dioxide levels that can trigger asthma attacks and worsen COPD symptoms. Carpets that harbored dust mites for years become breeding grounds for allergens that inflame already sensitive airways. Cleaning products used to maintain household hygiene often contain volatile organic compounds that damage lung tissue over time, with seniors experiencing cumulative effects of decades of exposure. Air fresheners, furniture polish, and bathroom cleaners release fumes that irritate respiratory passages and can trigger acute breathing problems in people with existing lung conditions. The irony strikes deep when products meant to create clean, healthy environments actually contribute to respiratory problems that claim so many senior lives. Prevention strategies focus on environmental modifications that reduce respiratory irritants and support lung function. Air purifiers with HEPA filters can remove particles and allergens that trigger breathing problems, while proper ventilation systems help maintain indoor air quality. Regular HVAC maintenance prevents buildup of dust, mold, and bacteria that can circulate through homes and worsen breathing conditions. Vaccination programs provide crucial protection against respiratory infections that can prove fatal in this age group. The pneumonia vaccine prevents many cases of bacterial pneumonia that kill thousands of seniors annually, while annual flu shots reduce influenza complications that often progress to pneumonia in older adults. These preventive measures provide protection that can mean the difference between minor illness and fatal respiratory crisis. Physical activity maintains respiratory muscle strength and lung capacity in ways medications cannot replicate. Even gentle exercise provides measurable improvements in breathing function. Walking programs, breathing exercises, and resistance training help seniors maintain muscle strength needed for effective coughing and deep breathing that clear infections before they become serious. The most shocking truth about respiratory deaths centers on how minor infections trigger fatal outcomes that younger immune systems would easily overcome. A simple head cold that causes minor congestion can progress to pneumonia and respiratory failure in someone over 75 whose immune system lacks resources to contain the infection. These deaths often surprise families because the initial illness seemed trivial. Yet the cascade of complications reveals how vulnerable aging respiratory systems become. While your lungs wage this increasingly difficult battle for each breath, your brain faces an entirely different kind of threat that strikes with even less warning than respiratory decline. The brain's sudden shutdown. Stroke strikes without warning. Stroke operates without dress rehearsals, practice runs, or warning performances. When your brain decides to shut down, it happens with the finality of opening night every single time. Unlike other medical conditions that build slowly over months or years, stroke strikes in seconds and leaves permanent consequences that reshape everything about how you function. Recent data shows stroke affects approximately 1 in 6 people over 75, making it more common than winning most lottery drawings, yet far less welcome than any prize you might claim. Your brain essentially decides to blue screen without any warning messages, error codes, or helpful prompts about saving your work before the system crashes. The neural networks that controlled speech, movement, and memory simply stop responding, leaving you trapped in a body that no longer follows your commands. The stroke mortality rate among seniors holds steady at approximately 39 deaths per 100,000 people, representing thousands of lives cut short by a medical emergency that offers no second chances or system restarts. The split-second nature of stroke creates terror that other medical conditions cannot match because the damage happens faster than you can recognize what's occurring. Blood clots form and travel to your brain in moments, blocking oxygen supply to neural tissue that dies within minutes of losing circulation. Brain cells cannot regenerate like other organs, so whatever dies during a stroke stays dead permanently. The window between normal function and devastating disability measures in minutes rather than hours, making stroke a medical emergency where every second determines the extent of permanent damage you'll carry for the rest of your life. Modern lifestyle factors have created conditions for stroke risk that previous generations never encountered. Social isolation, which became normalized during pandemic lockdowns, continues to plague seniors who lost social connections and never rebuilt them. The chronic stress of loneliness triggers inflammatory responses that damage blood vessels and increase clot formation risk. Medication interactions have become more complex as seniors take multiple prescriptions that were never tested together in clinical trials. The average person over 75 now takes 6 different medications daily, creating chemical combinations that can cause dangerous blood pressure fluctuations and increase stroke probability. Digital device usage among seniors has increased dramatically, with many now spending hours daily hunched over tablets and smartphones in positions that restrict blood flow to the brain. The sedentary behavior that accompanies increased screen time reduces circulation and promotes the formation of blood clots that can travel to the brain. Sleep disruption from blue light exposure affects the natural processes that help clear metabolic waste from brain tissue, creating conditions that make stroke more likely to occur. The cruel lottery aspect of stroke reveals itself when you examine 2 people with identical risk factors who experience vastly different outcomes. 2 seniors with the same blood pressure, medication regimen, and lifestyle habits can have completely opposite stroke experiences. One person might suffer a massive stroke that leaves them unable to speak or move, while their seemingly identical neighbor experiences a minor stroke with no lasting effects. This randomness creates anxiety because no amount of preparation guarantees protection from the worst possible outcomes. Your computer provides more advance warning before crashing than your brain gives before a stroke occurs. Laptops display error messages, slow performance, and system alerts that indicate problems developing over time. Your brain offers no such courtesy, functioning normally until the moment blood flow stops and neural tissue begins dying. The lack of warning symptoms makes stroke particularly frightening because you cannot prepare, plan, or take protective action once the process begins. Common senior health issues create interconnected pathways that lead directly to increased stroke risk. High blood pressure, which affects most people over 75, remains the primary risk factor that makes stroke 2 to 4 times more likely before age 80. Diabetes damages blood vessels throughout the body, creating weak spots where clots can form and travel to the brain. Atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat that becomes more common with age, allows blood to pool in heart chambers where it can clot and eventually block brain arteries. Sleep apnea, often undiagnosed in seniors, causes repeated oxygen deprivation that weakens blood vessels and promotes inflammation throughout the cardiovascular system. The stopping and starting of breathing during sleep creates pressure changes that can dislodge existing clots and send them toward the brain. Kidney disease, which develops silently in many older adults, affects blood pressure regulation and increases the toxic compounds circulating through the bloodstream that can damage brain tissue. Recent developments in stroke treatment offer genuine reasons for optimism that contrast sharply with the grim statistics about stroke incidence. New clot-busting medications can dissolve blockages up to 24 hours after stroke onset, dramatically extending the treatment window from the previous 3-hour limit. Mechanical thrombectomy procedures now allow surgeons to physically remove clots from brain arteries using devices that can navigate the complex vascular system and restore blood flow even hours after stroke begins. Ischemic strokes, which account for 87% of all strokes, can be treated effectively for many hours after onset if patients receive proper medical evaluation. The key lies in rapid recognition of symptoms and immediate transport to hospitals equipped with advanced stroke treatment capabilities. Mobile stroke units equipped with CT scanners and telemedicine capabilities now serve many metropolitan areas, bringing emergency treatment directly to patients rather than waiting for transport to hospitals. Prevention strategies have become more sophisticated and personalized based on individual risk profiles rather than generic recommendations. Blood pressure management now involves continuous monitoring devices that track patterns throughout the day, rather than relying on occasional readings taken during medical appointments. Medication timing has proven crucial, with evening doses of blood pressure medications showing superior stroke prevention compared to morning doses for many patients. Warning signs education has expanded beyond traditional approaches to include subtle symptoms that often get dismissed as normal aging. Sudden confusion, difficulty understanding speech, or trouble with coordination can indicate many strokes that serve as warnings for more serious events to come. Vision changes, severe headaches, or unexplained dizziness deserve immediate medical evaluation rather than being attributed to fatigue or stress. The most eye-opening revelation from recent stroke research centers on the prevalence of silent strokes that go unrecognized and untreated. Detailed brain imaging studies reveal that 60% of seniors who suffer their first diagnosed stroke have actually experienced previous silent strokes that caused no obvious symptoms, but created cumulative brain damage that increased their vulnerability to the major stroke that finally brought them to medical attention. While stroke attacks with lightning speed and devastating precision, another threat operates through an entirely different strategy, working slowly and methodically to dismantle the very organ that defines who you are. The mind's slow fade, when your brain writes its own goodbye. Dementia represents the brain's methodical betrayal of everything that makes you who you are. This remarkable organ that orchestrated every moment of your conscious life now operates like a computer slowly losing its files, with memories disappearing and cognitive functions shutting down one by one. Recent dementia statistics reveal a sobering reality. Cognitive decline now contributes to death in approximately 45% of people over 75, making your brain more likely to kill you than protect you in your final years. The progression resembles a computer hard drive gradually corrupting its data, starting with minor glitches that seem insignificant but eventually leading to complete system failure. Early stages involve misplacing items or forgetting names, symptoms that people dismiss as normal aging rather than warning signs of serious decline. The brain that once processed complex information instantly now struggles with basic tasks like remembering to take medications or recognizing familiar faces. Unlike a computer crash that happens suddenly, cognitive decline unfolds over years with such gradual progression that families often miss the severity until the damage becomes irreversible. The insidious nature of cognitive decline creates deadly consequences that extend far beyond memory problems. When your brain loses the ability to process information accurately, every aspect of daily life becomes potentially dangerous. Recent research has fundamentally changed our understanding of dementia as a direct cause of death rather than just a contributing factor. Previously, death certificates listed immediate causes like pneumonia or heart failure. But investigators now recognize that cognitive decline created the conditions that made these other causes inevitable. Memory loss triggers a domino effect that systematically dismantles the safety systems that keep people alive. Forgetting to take blood pressure medication leads to stroke risk that increases exponentially with each missed dose. Confusion about insulin timing creates blood sugar fluctuations that can cause coma or death. The inability to remember eating schedules results in malnutrition that weakens the immune system and makes infections more likely to prove fatal. These medication errors and nutritional problems stem directly from cognitive decline, but often get attributed to the immediate medical crisis they create rather than the underlying brain dysfunction that caused them. The progression from harmless forgetfulness to life-threatening confusion happens along a spectrum that families struggle to recognize until the situation becomes critical. Forgetting where you put your keys represents a minor inconvenience that everyone experiences occasionally. Forgetting how to swallow food or water represents a medical emergency that can cause aspiration pneumonia and death within days. The distance between these 2 points measures shorter than most people realize, with some individuals progressing from mild forgetfulness to severe dysfunction within months rather than years. Social isolation accelerated cognitive decline dramatically during the pandemic and continues to plague seniors who lost social connections and never rebuilt them. The human brain requires regular social stimulation to maintain neural pathways that control memory, language, and executive function. When seniors become isolated, these pathways begin deteriorating rapidly, creating a situation where loneliness literally causes brain tissue to shrink and cognitive abilities to disappear. Recent data shows that socially isolated seniors develop dementia symptoms 40% faster than those who maintain regular social contact. The connection between social isolation and accelerated cognitive decline operates through biological mechanisms that researchers have only recently identified. Chronic loneliness triggers inflammatory responses in the brain that damage neural tissue and accelerate the formation of plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. Isolated individuals also lose opportunities to practice cognitive skills like conversation, problem solving, and memory recall that help maintain brain function. The combination of biological damage and reduced mental stimulation creates rapid cognitive deterioration that often surprises families who thought their isolated family member was simply becoming more withdrawn rather than losing cognitive abilities. Brain health research has revealed unexpected protective factors that contradict previous assumptions about cognitive decline prevention. Physical exercise remains crucial, but the type and intensity matter more than previously understood. High-intensity interval training shows remarkable benefits for brain function, with even brief sessions of intense activity triggering the production of proteins that protect neural tissue and promote new brain cell growth. This approach proves more effective than traditional gentle exercise programs that provide minimal cognitive protection. Sleep quality emerges as perhaps the most powerful factor in preventing cognitive decline, with poor sleep directly causing the brain changes associated with dementia. During deep sleep, the brain activates cleaning systems that remove toxic proteins like amyloid and tau that accumulate during waking hours. When sleep becomes disrupted, these toxins build up in brain tissue and eventually cause the neural damage that leads to dementia. Studies show that people who maintain consistent, restorative sleep patterns have dementia rates 50% lower than those with chronic sleep problems. Social engagement strategies that specifically challenge cognitive function provide measurable protection against decline. Learning new skills, particularly those that combine physical and mental challenges like dancing or playing musical instruments, creates new neural pathways and strengthens existing ones. Regular participation in complex social activities that require planning, coordination, and communication helps maintain executive function and memory skills that deteriorate rapidly without use. The most startling revelation from recent cognitive research centers on how many deaths attributed to other causes actually stem from cognitive decline-related complications that went unrecognized by medical professionals and families. Detailed analysis of death certificates and medical records reveals that 73% of seniors who died from infections, medication errors, accidents, or malnutrition had underlying cognitive impairment that directly contributed to their death. These individuals might have lived months or years longer if their cognitive decline had been recognized and managed appropriately. The brain dysfunction that caused them to skip medications, ignore symptoms, or make dangerous decisions never appeared on their death certificates, but it created the conditions that made their other medical problems fatal rather than manageable. While your brain slowly erases the person you've spent a lifetime becoming, another threat operates on an entirely different schedule: completely indifferent to your personal timeline or future plans. The cancer curveball: why age makes you a sitting duck. Cancer operates on its own timeline, multiplying wildly and spreading through your body like teenagers throwing a house party when the parents leave town. Your cells that behaved perfectly for decades suddenly decide to go rogue after age 75, completely indifferent to your retirement plans, travel dreams, or grandchildren's graduations. Recent cancer mortality data reveals that cancer now causes death in approximately 22% of people over 75, making it the second leading killer in this age group. These cellular rebels don't care that you finally have time to enjoy life, or that you've been looking forward to your golden years for decades. The immune system that once patrolled your body like an elite security force gradually transforms into sleepy mall cops who miss obvious threats and let dangerous intruders slip past undetected. Age-related immune system decline creates the perfect environment for cancer cells to establish themselves and multiply without interference. Your immune cells that once destroyed abnormal cells before they could cause problems now lack the energy and efficiency to maintain proper surveillance. This deterioration happens so gradually that you remain unaware of your increasing vulnerability until cancer has already gained a foothold and begun spreading throughout your body. The immune system changes that occur after 75 make cancer both more likely to develop and more deadly once it appears. Young immune systems can often contain small cancers and prevent them from growing or spreading, but aging immune systems lack this protective capability. Cancer cells that would have been eliminated decades earlier now find fertile ground where they can multiply rapidly and invade surrounding tissues. The same immune decline that makes you more susceptible to infections also removes the natural barriers that once prevented cancer from taking hold in your body. Current screening guidelines have evolved to reflect the reality that cancer detection becomes both more crucial and more complex after age 75. Previous recommendations often stopped screening at certain ages based on life expectancy calculations that failed to account for individual health status and personal preferences. Updated guidelines recognize that many seniors remain healthy and active well into their 80s and 90s, making cancer screening worthwhile for much longer than previously thought. Early detection remains the most powerful weapon against cancer, but screening approaches must be tailored to account for physical limitations and health conditions that become more common with age. Mammograms, colonoscopies, and other screening tests that were routine in younger years now require careful consideration of risks versus benefits for each individual senior. The procedures themselves may pose greater risks for older patients who have other health conditions that complicate anesthesia or recovery. However, skipping screenings entirely often proves more dangerous than the screening procedures themselves, as undetected cancers in seniors typically progress more rapidly and respond less favorably to treatment once symptoms appear. The treatment dilemma facing senior cancer patients creates impossible choices between aggressive therapies that might cure the cancer, but destroy quality of life, and gentler approaches that preserve comfort, but may not eliminate the disease. Chemotherapy regimens that help younger patients often prove too harsh for senior bodies that lack the resilience to recover from the toxic effects. Radiation therapy can cause side effects that prove more debilitating for older patients than the cancer itself. Surgery becomes riskier when performed on bodies that heal slowly and have multiple other health conditions that complicate recovery. People check their smartphones dozens of times daily for messages and updates, but rarely examine their bodies for lumps, changes in moles, or other warning signs that could indicate cancer developing. The average person spends more time monitoring their social media notifications than they do performing the simple self-examinations that could detect cancer in its earliest, most treatable stages. This backwards priority system means that many seniors discover their cancers only after symptoms become impossible to ignore, often when the disease has already spread beyond the point where simple treatments might have been effective. The role of lifestyle factors in senior cancer risk represents the culmination of decades of choices that seemed harmless at the time, but created cumulative damage that finally manifests after age 75. Years of sun exposure from beach vacations and outdoor activities eventually trigger skin cancers that appear decades later. Smoking habits from young adulthood create lung damage that develops into cancer after the person has quit for years. Dietary choices involving processed meats, excessive alcohol, and limited fruits and vegetables create cellular damage that accumulates slowly until it reaches the threshold where cancer develops. Decades of exposure to environmental toxins, occupational hazards, and lifestyle choices create a perfect storm for cancer development that becomes apparent only after age 75. The asbestos exposure from construction jobs performed in the 1960s finally triggers mesothelioma in retirement. The industrial chemicals encountered during manufacturing careers cause bladder or liver cancers that appear decades after the exposure ended. Even seemingly innocent choices like living near busy roads or using certain household products contribute to the toxic load that eventually overwhelms cellular repair mechanisms and allows cancer to develop. Recent advances in cancer treatment, specifically designed for senior patients, offer genuine reasons for optimism despite the sobering statistics about cancer incidence in this age group. Precision medicine approaches now allow doctors to analyze the genetic characteristics of both the cancer and the patient to select treatments that maximize effectiveness while minimizing side effects. These targeted therapies often work better and cause fewer problems than traditional chemotherapy approaches that attacked all rapidly dividing cells without discrimination. Prevention strategies specifically tailored for the 75-plus population focus on realistic lifestyle modifications that provide meaningful cancer risk reduction without requiring dramatic life changes. Regular exercise programs designed for senior capabilities can boost immune function and reduce inflammation that contributes to cancer development. Dietary modifications that emphasize antioxidant-rich foods and limit processed meats can help neutralize the cellular damage that leads to cancer formation. The most surprising revelation from recent cancer research centers on how many cancers diagnosed in seniors are actually slow-growing tumors that may never become life-threatening. Detailed analysis shows that 43% of cancers found in people over 75 are indolent varieties that progress so slowly they would never cause symptoms or death within the patient's natural lifespan. These findings challenge the assumption that all cancer diagnoses require immediate aggressive treatment and highlight the importance of distinguishing between cancers that need urgent intervention and those that can be monitored safely. While cancer wages its cellular rebellion through these complex biological processes, your body's defense system faces an entirely different kind of breakdown that leaves you vulnerable to threats your immune system once handled effortlessly. The infection invasion, when your immune system goes AWOL. Infections that once bounced off your immune system like rubber balls now stick to you like glue, turning minor health issues into major medical emergencies that can prove fatal within days. Your body's defense system that once repelled germs with military precision now operates more like a small-town security guard who falls asleep on the job and lets dangerous intruders walk right through the front door. Recent infection mortality data reveals a sobering reality that most seniors don't recognize until they're fighting for their lives in a hospital bed. Infection-related deaths among people over 75 have increased by 34% since 2020, making infections responsible for approximately 18% of deaths in this age group. The post-pandemic landscape has fundamentally altered how infections affect senior populations, with weakened immune systems from COVID exposure creating lasting vulnerabilities that researchers are still discovering. Many seniors who survived COVID infections now carry immune system damage that makes them susceptible to bacterial and viral infections that would have posed minimal threat just a few years earlier. The combination of pandemic-related immune suppression and natural age-related decline has created a perfect storm where seemingly minor infections can escalate into life-threatening emergencies with frightening speed. A simple urinary tract infection that might cause mild discomfort in a younger person can trigger sepsis and organ failure in someone over 75 within 48 hours of the first symptoms appearing. The bacteria that cause UTIs multiply rapidly in aging urinary systems that lack the robust immune responses needed to contain the infection locally. What begins as frequent urination or mild burning can progress to confusion, high fever, and blood poisoning that requires emergency hospitalization and intensive medical intervention to prevent death. Skin wounds that heal quickly in younger people become dangerous entry points for deadly infections in seniors whose immune systems cannot mount effective responses to bacterial invasion. A minor cut from gardening or a small pressure sore from prolonged sitting can develop into cellulitis that spreads rapidly through tissue and enters the bloodstream. The aging skin that takes longer to heal provides extended opportunities for bacteria to establish infections that overwhelm weakened immune defenses and create systemic illness that proves difficult to treat successfully. Immunosenescence represents the scientific term for how your immune system ages like every other part of your body, gradually losing the ability to distinguish between harmless substances and genuine threats. The immune cells that once responded quickly and effectively to infections now react slowly and often inappropriately, sometimes attacking healthy tissue while ignoring dangerous pathogens. This process begins in middle age, but accelerates dramatically after 75, leaving seniors with immune systems that function at a fraction of their previous capacity. The production of new immune cells decreases significantly with age, while existing immune cells become less effective at recognizing and destroying infectious agents. The bone marrow that produces white blood cells reduces its output, creating shortages of the specialized cells needed to fight different types of infections. The thymus gland that trains immune cells to recognize threats shrinks to nearly nothing by age 75, leaving the immune system without proper education about how to respond to new infectious challenges. Antibiotic resistance has reached critical levels, making common infections far more dangerous for seniors than they were for previous generations, who could rely on standard treatments to cure most bacterial infections quickly. The overuse of antibiotics in both humans and livestock has created superbugs that resist multiple medications, leaving doctors with limited options when treating serious infections in elderly patients. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae now cause infections that require expensive, toxic treatments that often prove too harsh for aging bodies to tolerate. Your body's security system essentially transforms from an elite Navy SEAL unit into a group of elderly mall cops who struggle to distinguish between genuine threats and false alarms. The immune system that once eliminated infections before you even noticed symptoms now allows pathogens to multiply and spread, while mounting confused responses that often cause more damage than the infections themselves. This deterioration happens gradually over decades, making it difficult to recognize until a serious infection reveals just how compromised your defenses have become. Nutrition plays a crucial role in immune function that becomes even more important after age 75, when poor dietary choices can rapidly accelerate immune system decline. Protein deficiency prevents the production of antibodies and immune cells needed to fight infections, while vitamin deficiencies impair the cellular processes that destroy pathogens. Many seniors consume inadequate amounts of zinc, vitamin C, and vitamin D, nutrients that directly support immune function and help maintain the barriers that prevent infections from taking hold in the first place. Recent research on immune system support has revealed strategies that can genuinely improve infection resistance in seniors, though many of these approaches contradict popular assumptions about what helps maintain immunity. Moderate exercise proves more beneficial than intense workouts that can actually suppress immune function in older adults. Walking programs that include brief periods of increased intensity provide optimal immune stimulation without creating the stress that weakens already compromised immune systems. Sleep quality emerges as perhaps the most powerful factor in maintaining immune function, with poor sleep directly impairing the production and effectiveness of infection-fighting cells. During deep sleep, the body produces cytokines that coordinate immune responses and help repair tissue damage caused by daily exposure to pathogens. Seniors who maintain consistent sleep schedules and achieve restorative sleep show infection rates 40% lower than those with chronic sleep disruptions. Prevention strategies focus on recognizing early warning signs that indicate when minor symptoms require immediate medical attention rather than home treatment. Fever in seniors often indicates serious infection even when other symptoms seem mild, as aging bodies may not mount typical inflammatory responses that create obvious illness signs. Changes in mental status, including confusion or unusual behavior, can signal infections affecting the brain or bloodstream that require emergency treatment to prevent permanent damage or death. The most shocking revelation from recent infection research centers on how many deaths classified as sudden or unexpected actually begin with minor infections that spiral out of control within days. Detailed analysis shows that 67% of seniors who died from sepsis or multi-organ failure had visited healthcare providers within the previous week for seemingly minor complaints like cold symptoms, minor cuts, or urinary problems that were treated as routine issues rather than potential emergencies. These infections progressed so rapidly that families and medical professionals failed to recognize the severity until the patients were beyond the point where aggressive treatment could save their lives. While your weakened immune system struggles against these microscopic invaders, another threat emerges from an unexpected source that most people trust completely to protect their health. The medication maze, when your pills become the problem. The medications designed to keep you alive, past age 75, might actually be cutting your life short through mechanisms that most people never consider until they end up in an emergency room wondering how their daily pill routine became a toxic cocktail. Your medicine cabinet that once contained a few bottles now resembles a small pharmacy with dozens of prescription containers, each promising to fix a different problem while potentially creating new ones you never anticipated. Recent data reveals that medication-related deaths and adverse reactions now affect 23% of people over 75, making your daily pill routine more dangerous than many of the conditions those medications were prescribed to treat in the first place. Polypharmacy represents the medical term for taking multiple medications simultaneously, but the reality involves creating dangerous chemical combinations that were never tested together in clinical trials. The average person over 75 takes 6 different prescription medications daily, plus over-the-counter supplements and pain relievers that create complex interactions no doctor can fully predict. These medications mix in your bloodstream like ingredients in a chemistry experiment where nobody knows the final outcome until reactions begin occurring in your body. The pharmaceutical companies that tested each drug individually never examined what happens when their products combine with the dozens of other medications seniors typically consume. Your aging body processes medications completely differently than it did when you were younger, making standard dosages potentially lethal rather than therapeutic. The liver that once efficiently metabolized drugs now works at reduced capacity, allowing medications to accumulate in your bloodstream at dangerous levels. Your kidneys that previously filtered waste products and excess medications from your blood now function at diminished rates, causing drugs to remain active in your system much longer than intended. The stomach acid that once helped dissolve pills and tablets produces less efficiently, affecting how medications get absorbed into your bloodstream in the first place. Blood flow decreases throughout your aging body, affecting how quickly medications reach their target organs and how rapidly they get cleared from your system once they've done their work. The muscle mass that once helped distribute medications throughout your body shrinks significantly after age 75, concentrating drugs in smaller tissue volumes and increasing their potency beyond safe levels. Your body fat percentage typically increases with age, creating storage sites where fat-soluble medications accumulate and release slowly over time, extending their effects far beyond the intended duration. The cascade effect begins innocently when doctors prescribe medications to treat side effects from other drugs, creating an unstoppable chain reaction that leads to dangerous polypharmacy situations. Your blood pressure medication causes ankle swelling, so your doctor prescribes a diuretic that causes potassium loss, requiring a potassium supplement that upsets your stomach, leading to acid reducers that interfere with nutrient absorption, necessitating vitamin supplements that interact with your original blood pressure medication. Each new prescription seems logical in isolation, but together they create a pharmaceutical house of cards that becomes increasingly unstable with each addition. Sleep medications prescribed to help with insomnia can cause morning grogginess that leads to fall risks, prompting doctors to prescribe stimulants that raise blood pressure, requiring stronger blood pressure medications that cause fatigue, leading back to requests for more sleep aids. This circular pattern continues until seniors find themselves taking medications to counteract the side effects of other medications in an endless cycle that addresses symptoms rather than underlying problems. The original condition that started the cascade often gets lost in the complexity of managing medication side effects. Your medicine cabinet evolution from a few essential medications to a complex pharmaceutical operation happens so gradually that most people fail to recognize when they've crossed the line from therapeutic benefit into dangerous territory. The bathroom counter that once held a bottle of aspirin, and maybe a prescription or two now, requires organizers, pill sorters, and daily schedules to manage the increasing complexity of your medication regimen. Some seniors take more medications than small hospitals stock, yet they rarely question whether all those pills are truly necessary, or if some might be causing more harm than good. Recent research on medication interactions reveals vulnerabilities in senior bodies that make drug combinations particularly dangerous for this age group. The blood-brain barrier that protected your brain from toxins throughout your life becomes more permeable with age, allowing medications to affect brain function in ways that don't occur in younger patients. Medications that seemed safe for decades can suddenly cause confusion, memory problems, or personality changes when your aging brain becomes more susceptible to their effects. Kidney function changes create situations where medications prescribed at standard doses become toxic because your body cannot eliminate them efficiently. Drugs that require kidney processing for removal from your bloodstream accumulate to dangerous levels when kidney function declines, even slightly. The creatinine levels that doctors use to assess kidney function often underestimate the degree of decline in seniors, leading to inappropriate dosing that can cause serious complications or death. Regular medication reviews with pharmacists trained in geriatric pharmacy can identify dangerous combinations, inappropriate dosages, and unnecessary prescriptions that accumulate over time through visits to multiple specialists who may not communicate effectively with each other. These comprehensive reviews often reveal that seniors can safely discontinue several medications without experiencing any decline in their health or quality of life. The process involves systematically evaluating each medication's necessity, effectiveness, and safety profile specifically for senior patients. The most alarming revelation from recent medication safety research shows that 41% of seniors are currently taking at least one medication that is actually contraindicated for their age group, meaning the risks outweigh any potential benefits for people over 75. These age-inappropriate medications often remain on prescription lists because doctors continue refilling them automatically without reassessing their necessity or safety for aging patients whose bodies can no longer tolerate drugs that were once appropriate for their younger selves. While seniors navigate this treacherous pharmaceutical landscape, many face an even more insidious threat that operates entirely outside the realm of medicine, yet proves equally deadly through mechanisms that most people never recognize, until the damage becomes irreversible. The social death spiral. How loneliness literally kills. Loneliness operates as a silent assassin that kills as effectively as smoking 15 cigarettes daily. Yet it affects twice as many people over 75, making social isolation one of the most overlooked yet deadly threats facing seniors today. Recent research reveals that chronic loneliness increases mortality risk by 50%, creating biological changes in your body that accelerate aging and weaken every system responsible for keeping you alive. While smoking gets warning labels and public health campaigns, loneliness destroys lives without generating headlines or medical interventions until the damage becomes irreversible. The post-pandemic data shows devastating increases in senior isolation that continue years after lockdowns ended, with many older adults never rebuilding the social connections they lost during 2020 and 2021. Social isolation among people over 75 has increased by 43% since the pandemic began, creating a mental health crisis that directly translates into physical health emergencies. The seniors who adapted to virtual connections during lockdowns often abandoned them once restrictions lifted, leaving them more isolated than before the pandemic started. Many lost the confidence to resume in-person social activities and never developed the skills needed to maintain relationships through technology. Losing friends and family members creates a domino effect that accelerates your march toward death through mechanisms that extend far beyond simple sadness or grief. Each lost relationship removes a piece of your social safety net, leaving you with fewer people to notice changes in your health, provide assistance during emergencies, or encourage you to seek medical care when symptoms develop. The friend who might have noticed your increasing forgetfulness, or the family member who would have insisted you see a doctor about that persistent cough becomes absent from your life, removing crucial early warning systems that could prevent minor problems from becoming fatal conditions. The psychological stress of repeated losses creates a learned helplessness that makes seniors stop trying to form new relationships or maintain existing ones. After watching multiple friends die or move to assisted living facilities, many seniors conclude that investing in new relationships will only lead to more heartbreak. This protective mechanism backfires by guaranteeing the isolation that proves more dangerous than the emotional pain they're trying to avoid. The fear of future loss becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that ensures the very isolation that accelerates death. Loneliness triggers biological mechanisms that systematically destroy your body's ability to protect itself from disease and injury. Chronic isolation causes your body to produce excessive amounts of cortisol, the stress hormone that suppresses immune function and promotes inflammation throughout your cardiovascular system. This constant state of biological alarm wears down your body's defenses, making you more susceptible to infections, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. The inflammatory response triggered by loneliness resembles the damage caused by chronic physical illness, creating measurable changes in blood markers that predict increased mortality risk. Your immune system suffers particularly severe damage from prolonged isolation, with lonely seniors showing immune profiles similar to people undergoing chemotherapy or battling serious infections. The white blood cells that protect you from disease become less effective at recognizing and destroying threats, while your body produces fewer antibodies needed to fight off infections. This immune suppression explains why isolated seniors often die from infections that would be minor inconveniences for socially connected individuals of the same age. The cruel irony reveals itself when you realize that the people who most desperately need social connection often have the least access to it due to physical limitations, transportation problems, or financial constraints that make social participation impossible. The seniors who would benefit most from regular social interaction cannot drive to visit friends, afford activities that promote social engagement, or physically participate in community events that might provide meaningful connections. Their greatest need coincides with their lowest ability to meet that need independently. Mobility limitations trap many seniors in their homes, creating geographic isolation that compounds the emotional isolation they already experience from losing friends and family members. The person who once enjoyed dinner parties and social gatherings becomes housebound, watching life happen through windows rather than participating in community activities. This physical isolation becomes psychological isolation as the outside world continues without them, making them feel forgotten and irrelevant to the people and activities they once enjoyed. Social media promises to connect us with everyone, yet often leaves seniors feeling more isolated than ever because digital interactions cannot replace the physical presence and genuine intimacy that humans require for emotional well-being. Many seniors struggle with technology that younger people navigate effortlessly, creating frustration and inadequacy feelings that worsen their sense of disconnection from modern society. The platforms designed to bring people together often highlight the gap between superficial online relationships and meaningful real-world connections that provide genuine emotional support. Social engagement connects directly to every other major cause of death because isolated seniors are more likely to skip medical appointments, ignore symptoms, make medication errors, and neglect self-care routines that prevent serious health problems. The person who lives alone and rarely speaks to others has no external accountability for maintaining their health, taking medications correctly, or seeking help when problems develop. Social connections provide the external motivation and support systems that encourage people to take care of themselves, even when they don't feel like making the effort. Loneliness increases the risk of developing dementia by 40% because social interaction provides the cognitive stimulation needed to maintain brain function and delay mental decline. Regular conversation, shared problem solving, and emotional support exercise mental faculties that deteriorate rapidly without use. Isolated seniors lose opportunities to practice communication skills, memory recall, and complex thinking that help preserve cognitive abilities throughout aging. The most surprising finding from relationship research shows that relationship quality matters far more than quantity for protecting against mortality risk associated with loneliness. Having even one close, supportive relationship can provide almost as much protection as having multiple casual acquaintances. This finding offers hope for seniors who cannot maintain large social networks, but can focus their energy on nurturing one or two meaningful connections that provide genuine emotional support and practical assistance during difficult times. Understanding these 5 deadly threats represents just the beginning of the challenge facing seniors who want to protect their health and extend their lives. Knowledge alone has never saved anyone from preventable death. The prevention paradox: why knowing isn't enough. The real challenge begins when seniors must bridge the gap between understanding these threats and actually taking action to prevent them. Most people over 75 possess remarkable knowledge about what they should do to stay healthy, yet they continue making choices that slowly kill them day after day. This creates one of the most frustrating paradoxes in senior health care, where education fails to translate into action despite life-or-death consequences. Recent behavioral health data reveals that 89% of seniors can accurately identify the major risk factors for heart disease, stroke, and cancer. But only 23% consistently follow the preventive measures they know could save their lives. The disconnect becomes even more puzzling when you examine how much health information seniors consume through television programs, medical websites, and conversations with healthcare providers. The average person over 75 encounters health advice multiple times daily through news reports, doctor visits, and well-meaning family members. Yet this constant exposure to life-saving information rarely results in meaningful behavior changes. Instead, many seniors develop information fatigue, where they tune out health advice because they feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of recommendations they receive from various sources. Psychological barriers create invisible walls that prevent seniors from taking actions they know could extend their lives and improve their quality of life. The most powerful barrier involves the deeply ingrained belief that bad things happen to other people, but not to them personally. This optimism bias becomes more dangerous with age because seniors have survived decades without experiencing major health crises and develop false confidence that they will continue avoiding serious problems without changing their current habits. The person who has smoked for 50 years without developing lung cancer believes they are somehow immune to the consequences that affect everyone else. This mentality becomes particularly treacherous after age 75, when the cumulative effects of lifestyle choices reach critical thresholds where small additional risks can trigger catastrophic health events. The senior who has maintained high blood pressure for years without obvious consequences may dismiss the urgency of medication compliance because nothing bad has happened yet. They fail to recognize that their body has been absorbing damage silently and approaches the point where the next spike in blood pressure could cause a fatal stroke or heart attack. The overwhelming nature of modern health advice creates paralysis by analysis, where seniors receive so much conflicting information that they choose to do nothing rather than risk making the wrong choice. One expert recommends aggressive exercise, while another warns about overexertion risks for seniors. Nutritional advice changes monthly, with new studies contradicting previous recommendations about everything from coffee consumption to vitamin supplementation. This constant stream of evolving and contradictory guidance leaves many seniors feeling confused and defeated before they even attempt to make changes. The complexity of modern medical recommendations requires seniors to become experts in multiple fields simultaneously, including nutrition, exercise physiology, pharmacology, and disease prevention. Most people lack the educational background needed to evaluate conflicting health claims or distinguish between evidence-based recommendations and marketing-driven advice. This information overload creates decision paralysis, where seniors postpone taking any action while they attempt to research and understand every aspect of their health choices. The absurd reality emerges when you observe how seniors will drive across town to save $2 on groceries, but resist spending money on gym memberships or healthy foods that could add years to their lives. They clip coupons and comparison shop for the best deals on household items while ignoring opportunities to invest in their health that offer returns measured in additional years of independence and vitality. The same person who researches extensively before purchasing a new television makes impulsive decisions about medications or dismisses symptoms that could indicate serious health problems. This backwards priority system reflects how humans struggle to value long-term benefits compared to immediate savings or gratification. The money saved on groceries provides instant satisfaction, while the health benefits from exercise or improved nutrition remain invisible and uncertain. Seniors can see the $2 they saved immediately, but cannot visualize the extra months or years of life they might gain from better health choices. Successful behavior change programs designed specifically for the 75-plus population have discovered that traditional approaches focused on education and willpower fail consistently with this age group. The most effective programs recognize that seniors face unique psychological, physical, and social barriers that require different intervention strategies than those used with younger adults. These programs emphasize gradual changes that build confidence and momentum, rather than dramatic lifestyle overhauls that feel overwhelming and unsustainable. The concept of small wins has revolutionized how healthcare providers approach senior behavior change by breaking large health goals into tiny, manageable steps that create psychological momentum. Instead of recommending that sedentary seniors begin exercising for 30 minutes daily, these programs might start with a goal of walking to the mailbox each day. This seemingly insignificant change creates a foundation for larger improvements, while building the self-efficacy needed to tackle more challenging modifications over time. The most effective strategies for turning knowledge into action involve connecting health recommendations to values and activities that seniors already prioritize in their daily lives. Programs that help seniors understand how better health enables them to spend more time with grandchildren, pursue hobbies, or maintain independence achieve better results than those focused on abstract health benefits. The senior who learns that strength training could help them continue gardening shows more motivation than one who hears about general fitness benefits. Social accountability emerges as a crucial factor in senior behavior change, with programs that include peer support or family involvement showing dramatically better results than individual counseling approaches. Seniors who make health commitments to friends or family members maintain new behaviors longer than those who rely solely on personal motivation. The social pressure and support system created by these relationships provides external motivation when internal motivation wanes during difficult periods. The empowering truth that emerges from recent research shows that prevention efforts started after age 75 can add meaningful years to life, while dramatically improving the quality of those additional years. The biological systems that support health retain remarkable capacity for improvement even in the final decades of life, when appropriate interventions are implemented consistently. Small changes in diet, exercise, sleep, and social engagement can reverse years of decline and restore function that many seniors assumed was lost forever. Every single day presents an opportunity to make choices that either accelerate decline or promote vitality, regardless of age or current health status. The power to change your trajectory lies entirely within your control, regardless of your current age or health status. Death after 75 isn't about bad luck or genetic lottery tickets that determine your fate through random chance beyond your control. The statistics we've examined reveal that mortality results from daily choices accumulating over decades until they reach critical thresholds where your body can no longer compensate for the damage. You cannot stop the aging process or prevent every health problem from developing as you grow older. However, you possess tremendous control over how you age and whether you spend your final years thriving independently or declining rapidly through preventable conditions that destroy quality of life before ending it entirely.